It was the first time there was ever a gay character on screen. It was like discovering this huge community that just had been waiting to be galvanized and organized together in some way. Gaaays In Spaaace exists for then the marriage of two people who met because of it. Didn't break us. It did not take away the safe space that so many people need now more than ever. We're still here, and we're back, and get ready for some amazing stuff.
Those, but also by the stories we tell those who it belongs to in the future. His work connects science fiction to science fact using fandom, community, and real conversation about equity to open doors into the space industry and beyond. He's also the creator of the Galactic Diversity and Inclusion Con, a convention built to bring together science fiction fandom, real space conversation, and a broader vision of who gets to belong in the future. He has helped create large-scale events, brought together actors and astronauts, and spoken publicly about the inclusion as humanity moves further into space. What makes today's conversation especially interesting is that Dan is not coming at this from only one angle. He understands media, he understands the audience, he understands how culture can move people before policy ever does. So today we're going to talk about how Star Wars, storytelling, diversity, AI, activism, and the future of space exploration are all connected, and why the fight over representation in fiction may actually shape what happens in real life. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And wow, have I done all of that? That was pretty.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool when it's listed out like that. Yeah, thank you.
I feel like that's kind of what I get from a lot of my guests. I feel like I pull in together their bios from all crosses of the internet, and they don't actually understand what they've all done when it's put together. Thank God for AI for this, because I wouldn't have been able to do that. But before we get anywhere, I ask every guest the same question. What is a truth in your industry that people do not want to admit?
That, well, half of the industry doesn't want to admit that prejudice does still exist, that equality is still a struggle, kind of a daily struggle, and that one victory here and there, winning one battle here and there does not mean we've won the war. And, if you talk to so many people in Hollywood, I have a black friend. You hear that a lot. Like, yeah, there's a gay guy who works at my office, and yeah, so I know him. So there's still quite a bit of that. And when people hear that, they I don't say it to be discouraging to anybody that is trying to make a difference and get out there, but it's like they don't want to admit that colorblind casting is not really a thing. So
Very fair. Which I feel like it should be. If you could put the preface before that, to me, if you send in a reel, they should be able to listen to it first, see how they feel, and then look at the person and say, okay, this is right fit, not wrong fit. That would be more anti-prejudice, in my opinion. But the orchestra already does that. So it's not something that's out there. I wonder why the industry doesn't do that. Sorry.
That's interesting. That's like the Masked Singer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is it, or The Voice, where they have their backs to the talent first, and then once they decide they're worthy, they get to turn around. When it's just like, voice sucks. I don't even care what he looks like. Yeah, totally.
So I just want to get a little bit into your background. What made you go from a celebrity journalist into the career path you are now?
It's interesting because I never expected to be a celebrity journalist. My whole career is kind of like what? How? Because it certainly was, it certainly isn't something that you could check a box on the list that my guidance counselor gave me. You want to be a wandering gay Trekkie. So, I fell into celebrity interviewing, and I discovered how much I enjoyed talking to people and, learning about them and discovering, what made them happy in life and what they were pursuing, because I found that helped me quite a bit in figuring out what I was passionate about and what I wanted to do. So, it was free therapy. And then over the course of all those years, you know, I started at WNYU Radio, my college radio station. And the program director made the mistake of, and I said, so what you're saying is, if I get any celebrities, I can do a show based on them. They were like, yeah, yeah. And they expected me to come back with, you know, the musician who performs on the corner down the street. And then I came back with all of the Star Trek actors because I thought, oh, I'm gonna take advantage of this. Like, so I went after them. And as a result, now I've been friends with so many of them for decades now. And in fact, Denise Crosby from Star Trek The Next Generation, she actually officiated my wedding at the first D&I Con, which you can see back there. She's dressed as Moira Rose. And so as those relationships developed, it became like a backbone for what I was doing. Then around 2016, when the Star Trek Beyond was released in theaters, and it was the first time there was ever a gay character on screen, you know, and it wasn't an alien, it wasn't some kind of weird, like, they're gay but not gay, don't worry. It was just a simple gay guy with his gay husband and their daughter. And so, you know, I thought it was such a big deal that I was super excited about it, and no one else was seemingly paying attention. You know, I'm like, where the parade at? Like, you know, I got confetti. Let's make a big deal out of this. And nobody did. So I was that same year covering the big Star Trek convention in Las Vegas as a member of the press. And so I figured, well, I'm going to be there anyway. I'm going to plan a little party to celebrate this. You know, maybe nobody else cares, but if it turns out to be me and a couple of friends, you know, raising a toast to this historic moment, that'll be cool. Well, so many people cared, and so many people were into it. It was like discovering this huge community that just had been waiting to be galvanized and organized together in some way. And then here comes Gaaays In Spaaace. And it's like, is it ridiculous or is it pretty good? So at that point, I saw what I could do on, you know, coming from that side of things. And I saw the change that I could help to make in people's lives. And comparing that to reviewing the latest piece of crap that Hollywood put out and having to come up with another way of complimenting a film that was terrible, which I would all, because I'd never say anything bad to him, but I'd go to comments like, you know, the lighting was so striking on this film. They just nailed it with the lighting. You look so beautiful. And I couldn't come up with anything more than that. So I said, you know what? I need to spend my time doing something of value. So that's when, you know, I had the bonkers idea that Gaaays In Spaaace would become a nonprofit and we would continue. And of course, now here we are 10 years later. We've done over 300 events all across the country. We did D&I Con, our own weekend-long convention. And now what's so cool is instead of me interviewing, you know, other people about their work, suddenly people want to know about my work. And it's pretty cool being on the other side of it.
Yes, I can imagine that that's kind of nice. I do some guest spots here or there, but I'm not the one that people reach out to. I'm the one that people want to be hosted on, not the other way around. I hope one day to get there. But I do want to ask, though, what happened to Hollywood? Why is the crap for the last 10, like literally, I can say crap for the last 10 years. I am a true 90s movie fanatic. I grew up with Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Will Smith, like all of the legendary people. And I can say for certainty, storytelling after the 2015s became shitty. Why?
Do you remember the film Wall Street with Charlie Sheen and Martin Sheen, right? Was it? Well, Charlie Sheen.
The 1998?
Yeah, no, the
Yeah.
original. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Michael Douglas. Sorry.
That's where I
So
was. Yeah.
Michael Douglas, his most memorable line in that film is "Greed is good," and that was a reflection, of course, on the '80s and the generation of boomers that were like, yeah, we own a home and we own a boat and we own this, and by the way, kids, you ain't never going to be able to do any of that because we gonna spend all the money and lose a lot of it on Wall Street. Sadly, that idea went from simply being a big part of the finance world where you expect it to be cutthroat and nobody cares. It's just all about making money. Unfortunately, it spread and permeated every industry out there. And so it hit Hollywood. And when it did, all of a sudden, they weren't making movies because they were good. They were making movies because they literally had a spreadsheet. I'm sure it's advanced into an algorithm now, but they had a spreadsheet and they knew if we spend this on the budget, we have this level actor who gets paid this, and with every detail, we make money. And it's like, how about a script? We'll get to that. And so it creativity was out the window. And the only place really that you could find it were in smaller projects. I mean, I think thank goodness for streaming, for
Mm.
Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, all of those original things, because they were starting at the beginning. They were starting from the beginning. So they couldn't care only about money. They had to prove themselves with good, solid programming. I'm sure it will not be long. I mean, Netflix, God, if you want to actually, like, you could do a comedy special and put it on Netflix because they will put
Mm.
anybody up on a comedy thing.
Well, they're now doing podcasts too. I'm actually thinking about reaching out, seeing if I can get a podcast.
Yeah, it's a great place to break in. Yeah. But so I think that has been the oasis for people who truly care about entertainment and people who understand that the movies we watch, the TV shows we watch, the books we read, those are the things that shape a culture. They shape our culture. And you'll notice the correlation between the fad, the big, explosion of apocalyptic storylines like Walking Dead and all the vampire stuff and everything that depicts this desolate, hopeless future for humanity. You'll see how that correlates to in
Mm.
real life us thinking, wow, morals, what are those? You give your word? Well, what is that? Which word? Like so the two are, one leads the other. And
Mm.
like, I mean, and it's so sad because when you look back at when Star Trek was on originally in the 60s, you were talking about serious times where it
Mm.
was, the threat of destroying the whole planet was real. And yet during that time, they had optimistic shows. They had shows that showed humanity. No, guys, don't worry. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. But now in this day and age, we're like, oh my God, everything's going to be so bad. And so that's, I think, the impact that it's had. And yeah, so my take on it is there will still be some movies that come
Yeah.
out that are just like gems because you'll have actors and producers that are so successful that it's like, give me this amount of money and I'm going to make the movie I want. When that
Mm.
happens, you got some good stuff. But other than
I
that, wait for Netflix, seriously.
Well, I even say that Netflix is kind of going that way now too. They're getting more conglomerated and more
Mm.
focused on the finances as opposed to the storylines. That's one of the reasons I started my channel. I eventually want to turn this into a media company where I can protect the creative over the
Mm.
money.
Yeah.
Essentially using the free model to give out the series and then doing monetizing everything else.
Right.
Um, right? That's the perfect model to protect the creative. You finance off of the alternatives, everything that comes out of the story, but you keep the story free, because that is what it engages your people, your audience. You want Nobody wants to pay for their content. I don't even like to pay for my content. I,
Sure. Yeah.
I don't download my movies or anything like that, right? But people, it's like video games. People don't want to buy something if they don't know what they're getting.
Mhm.
And lately, it's been like, you don't know what you're getting. I would rather watch a 90s movie or 2000s movie than anything nowadays. Although I do have to give it to Project Hail Mary. That was a very good movie, very impressed. And it had a lot of elements that I thought were missing from modern cinema, like hopefulness, long shots, story driven purely by the conversation than what's going on around them. I think some of the best movies in the world are in a room and all it is people talking.
Yeah.
Because you can be creative. People can imagine things. I'm so excited to see The Iron Lung by Markiplier, because holy crap, he spent next to nothing on this thing, created one thing in his room and built a whole movie based off a video game that he bought the rights of. And I think that's where the world is going, especially how I see actors coming out now and saying, like, I'm tired of this. I don't like, even Tom Holland's come out and said, like, I hate Hollywood. Like, I love making these movies, but I hate going and doing these things. Do you see that coming?
I think that can happen for some people. The Hollywood model of this is just to make money is never going away, because that's what keeps the studio's lights on. That's what guarantees the golden parachutes for all those presidents and high up executives that, oh no, I need a golden parachute. It's like, you know what, just fall. Hopefully you'll land in water. So those will never go anywhere. I think that it's the expansion, obviously, of streaming that is responsible for exactly what you said, for programming that is made not to make money. It's made for the love of making it. The challenge that model now gives is, how does anybody know about your show? Because the elimination of commercials, like, I don't watch anything that has commercial, like, I don't have time. And the beauty of commercials was that it it gave you a glimpse into other shows in in a 30-second spot that you otherwise would not have known about. It also is a great way to sell, toilet paper and beer and, but so there, as much as we want to be able to do things just for the love of, there will always be a financial component to it, because it's the only way things can run.
Yeah.
Until society finally gets to the point where we realize, like, it's really just a theory. It's a piece of paper with something printed on it. It's not backed by anything. It's not actually worth anything. It's just because somebody says this is worth as much as that microphone. So here.
Yeah, that I do want to point in on. Like, people do not understand that money has no value. Like, that statement right there, people gloss over all the time. Money itself is completely invaluable, or not valuable. The value comes from the creation that money buys.
Right. Yeah,
and that's kind of lost in our modern day and age. I really wish we'd have, like, at least some finance classes growing up in school so that people could be taught how financial decisions get made. I think a lot of the future depends on education more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every time I hear about new budgets and stuff that the country puts together and where money is going, I feel like, look, there are two things in society that deserve as much funding as possible. One is education, obviously, because we are going to keep making the same mistakes. And not only the same mistakes, we are going to repeat all of the mistakes of the past. And it's just going to be a cycle until everyone, until there is education to the point where ignorance is no longer a thing. It goes back to asking a question, no longer being like, well, I don't know this, so I'm just going to be angry about it and pretend it doesn't matter. It's like, no, if you don't know something, you ask. Like, there's no stupid questions other than the ones that are not asked. And the second,
The
sorry, no, go ahead.
I just wanted to say a lot of that. So I've gone through a lot of in my life, and I realized how much our current schooling system shames you for asking questions. That was a big insight into my life that I had to reflect on in order for me to ask more questions.
Yeah, it's the, like, I'm not sure how, I'm sure it's still very prevalent, but the kids shaming other kids when they do well, or if they care about class. It's like, you're lame. It's like,
I
no,
would
I just
I
want to
love
grow up.
school.
And yeah, me too. This is the best part of my life. I'm the only gay guy you would talk to pretty much that when he was a gay kid, high school was my favorite time in life because I went to this incredible high school it was a specialized high school. Basically, the honors programs from the other high schools came together and formed their own school. So I was able to go to school where it was a competition to do better. It was like the shame was, oh, you didn't really do well on that one, did you? A 70? I want to hit those books.
I do also want to say I think it's also a location based thing because I throughout my childhood I was in like a bigger town called Oshawa. I grew up there for my first 16 years of my life, and that's where I really got shamed for being smart and being different. Soon as I moved out to a rural area, it was like I love school. I want to learn. I want to be there every day. I enjoy every moment of this. And then college was even better because it was like I get to learn and party and learn at like it was so much more fun. And I
Yeah.
know I'm going to get called names for it, but I like to learn and I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah, no, nor should you be, because you want one of the most brilliant person that I have ever known in my life was my AP English and philosophy professor in high school. And she was a woman who it didn't matter who was in a room that she walked into, she could learn from every single person in that room. And she wanted to. This is who was, I mean, literally brilliant on so many levels. And you would never guess, because she was always and is so interested in learning that it's not about, I know more than you do. She just loves learning so much that same thing. She didn't care if other people thought it was, whatever, because you're smart enough to not care, you know?
Very fair. What was the second thing we should be funneling money?
Oh, the second is sanitation. It's so simple, but because I'm from New York, so when you go into the city, if trash is out, if it's all, that means that the multitude of rats that live in New York City, they come up out of, and it's just like, you know what, you guys stay down there, we'll stay up here. I'll never invade your home, you never invade mine, until we leave out free food for them everywhere. And people who have to wade through that, you're not going to start off your day well. You're not going to be happy, because it's just, you want to be in a clean place where it doesn't seem like it, it doesn't seem like, oh God, what's going to run across my foot today? What am I going to have to kick off of me? So, so yeah, I believe that instead of spending millions or billions of dollars on another useless, submarine that is now completely outdated and useless, take that money and you put it into sanitation, education, and you'll see a difference almost immediately. Like I was a big fan of this mayor before he went and lost his damn mind. But when Giuliani was mayor of New York City, it was kind of like that. It was, I mean, it was over the course of maybe a year or two, where all of a sudden trash was picked up, the streets were clean. Like, you weren't, my first year, living in the village at NYU, I didn't even think about walking anywhere I wanted. 4 a.m. didn't matter. Whereas, prior to, it was a little like, all right, travel in groups, maybe lock arms. So
you might come across a rat king or two.
you might just try to make friends and try not to get tangled in with them. But yeah, I think, man, if those two things just focused on, we would just be such a better, a better society, and people would be happier, which is probably what we should try for, right? Shouldn't we be looking for being happy?
You'd think so, but then you look at every economy and all they see is GDP, and it's like, this is a measure that we're doing great. And then meanwhile, in Canada, we have the record highest homelessness, highest job uselessness, highest criminal rate in years, highest food inflation in the G7. Yeah, it's really bad here. Our government over the last 12 years has not changed. I will say this for right now. Carney was in the same cabinet with Trudeau for the past 5 years. Everything's the same. Nothing's changing.
Wow.
It's just a new guy in the face. And yeah, we're facing record everything that's breaking Canada's back.
But you're also polite. You're also nice. You just kind of figured that.
No,
over.
we went from polite to kind is where I kind of make the difference.
Oh.
Or not. We went from kind to nice is the difference. What I'm trying to mean there. So we were a people that used to be. Yeah, we used to be a people that could stand up for our own moral beliefs. We used to be able to talk past our differences. We used to be unapologetically truthful about our situations, which is why we always say sorry. We're always sorry that somebody else has to experience pain. Over the past 15 years, I'd say we went from kind to nice, where we just put on a front. And I'm not saying that's the majority of Canadians, but that's kind of where we're sitting now. Canada is not the Canada anybody remembers, and even not the one to fear, which again, we went from savages in World War II to being the most meek people on the planet. And these are kind of the situations that we face here, and we don't really get to talk about it much because our government very much controls our media. So
do you think that happened as a result of elected officials, or do you think it happened as a result of the people who voted for those elected officials?
It's a little bit of both. So to give you some history, we don't have free speech in Canada. We've never had free speech. Our free speech got ended in 1970 before our Charter of Rights was built. And Pierre Trudeau, or Justin Trudeau's father, in 1970 came up with the Freedom of Expressions Act, which basically made what's called a hate crime. And that's basically just speaking your mind. If you hate somebody, you cannot say that to them because that is a punishable offense under our Constitution. Fast forward to 2015, we have Justin Trudeau come in saying, hate's all we have, hate, hate, hate. Everyone in the world is just hating everybody. We need to start putting more practices in place where we're bringing in diversity, equity, inclusion. Mm-hmm. And it really became we just don't want white people to have any privilege very quickly. Mm-hmm. And now we're faced with a lot of laws that are now putting hate at the front of our judicial system. So basically, we are losing our rights for freedom of speech, which we didn't have anyways, but even the freedom of expression is getting worse. So now it's clamped control. If you say it online, you now can be convicted of that. And then just along the other things.
What if it's something that you're saying that I hate this person because murdered a child?
Nope, doesn't matter. So I don't know if you know this. Do you remember in Canada, a few years ago, there was an Indigenous crisis. We had an Indigenous genocide.
Yes, vaguely. God, I don't know nearly enough about my upstairs neighbors. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Canada. We don't tell anybody anything. So, true facts of this situation. We found 215 unmarked graves, or the Indigenous people did unmarked graves through sonar. So they rolled a machine across the thing, said there's lumps, there's kids there. There's an Indigenous grave, and the Canadian government has classified it as a genocide for the Indigenous people. First off, 215 people is not a genocide. Secondly, over the past 5 or 7 years, where we've been giving them money to prove this, they have refused to dig up the burial sites. So we have no confirmed proof that this exists, but it's still a punishable offense to deny this genocide in Canada.
Wow. Wow. See, when you first started talking about that, my mind immediately went to, wow, that means regulation of hate speech that's spread across the internet and the bullying that happens and all of the horrible things that happen as a result, like forcing someone to take responsibility, you know, the whole bullying thing actually, it just blows my mind because now, thanks to the internet, people can bully as much as they want. There are no repercussions, and they just choose to do it, and they can do it as hard as they want. They can, it happens to, teenagers in school, and that you should just kill yourself, and then it, will happen. Whereas when I was growing up, if you wanted to bully somebody, you had to do it face to face. And you knew that if you were going to do that, you might have to throw hands. And that's an immediate consequence. So people had to pick and choose. Who do I really hate enough to worry about getting punched in the face by telling them? Talk about one
I've had
downside of the internet.
I've had a legitimate swirly. Like, people don't think swirlies exist. I've actually had to explain what a swirly was to people. I have had a legitimate swirly in my life.
Oh my God, what is that?
Where the bully takes your head, shoves it in the toilet, flushes the toilet.
Oh my.
I've been beaten to a pulp. I've been choked out. I've actually had to go to the hospital for bullying. It is so fun fact. I'm writing about this in my new novel. I'm creating a novel called Bleeding Digital. I'm just writing the manuscript and sending it out right now. But I talk about the differences between bullying and cyberbullying. And I actually identify cyberbullying as one of the reasons why governments clamp down. And it's also one of the reasons why people are afraid of everybody nowadays.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to releasing that.
That's wow. Have you ever experienced the cyberbullying side as intensely as you did with real life? Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that will be interesting to see how you compare and contrast the two, because different generations will say, oh no, my type of bullying was definitely worse than what you're going through. Wow. Yeah.
I've now come to the conclusion where I think cyberbullying has gone too far. Like, policing cyberbullying has gone too far. We need to start putting the onuses on the victims. I'm sorry, as much as this sounds bad, we need the onus on the victim to do what they need to do to get away from that situation. If I was being bullied at school, the first thing I'm doing is running away. I'm not going in a conference confronting the bully. And people need to start learning that the internet isn't real. You can turn it off. You can go somewhere else. You can change your name. Like, these are things you can do to combat this and not worrying about it. I think we really need to put a dividing line between digital reality and actual reality, which is the thesis of the book. Is we put too much control on the digital reality over the physical one.
Interesting. See, my thoughts are the complete opposite of that, because running, a gay organization, from day one, I knew there were going to be people that were unhappy that we existed. And achieving the amount of success that we did, that always breeds jealousy, which leads to anger, which then has the perfect outlet, which is the internet. And so, when we did last year, our convention would have been our third year in a row. The first 2 years were freaking amazing. They were, people said at the end of it, best convention I've ever been to. This is a convention that has purpose, that you made my childhood dreams come true. Like, just incredible, incredible response. And then, with the coupling of the we hate gays, so you shouldn't exist, the jealousy and anger from within the community, then you top it off with all of the changes in our government. So I've never believed in something like called an insurmountable odds against you. I've never believed in that until last year, because we ended up having to cancel. And it was largely because of online bullying, because
But
the people
so
all.
yeah, this is the distinction I make, though. It's not the people of the internet that caused the problem. It's the people off the internet that saw that as a problem for their product, their identity, their thing, and then overcompensated by saying, nope, we're done. This is the problem that we've layered onto the internet. The internet is not real. The internet is our thoughts that are unregulated, the things that come from our heads that if you were in the presence of that person, you more than likely would not say.
Oh,
But
yeah,
then
they
we've
totally would.
become but then we've become this police state that says 14 years ago when you were 12 years old, you said a racist thing and now you're a racist for the rest of your life.
Okay. Yeah, that's a whole different, like that. I agree. You know,
So that
like
fear,
you can't convict someone today of a crime that was committed before it was illegal. Like you can't.
but private companies can.
Oh, in the sense that, in the sense that it looks bad because of, and then they're fired. Yeah, yeah, I could see that.
That's where my onus is just around like we spent 10 years where we actually saw the repercussions of posting online and then experiencing real world consequences because of it.
Right.
And I think that time where that went through everybody's psyche of, oh shit, whatever I post is now my reality for the rest of my life. I can no longer get away from that. I think
Right.
that psychology shift happened across every generation, across every person, and it really affected how we treat people nowadays. And I want to go back to the 1990s. I was a geek. I was told I was gay. I wasn't sexual in any way. Like I was a late bloomer. I really didn't know who I was, but I was a hardcore geek and I showed it. And I was bullied every fucking day for it.
Mm.
And you know what happened? Geekdom's now exploded. It is one of the biggest things that people see online or in the world nowadays. It just comes with time and the people who are jealous and the people who are hateful to die out.
Well, and it also happens because of money. Being a geek meant that you could make a ton of money and you got the hot girl, and the captain of the football team gets fat and old and miserable. Like, so that definitely has a, yeah. I think though, the two quick things on the last thing, that I agree, you can just turn it off and you don't have to read it. And for, years, because the bullying towards us didn't just start. It was a slow burn, over 7 years before it exploded. And I completely ignored it. I'm like, I don't got time for this. I want to be creating good things. I don't want to hear about how they wish we weren't, like, irrelevant. So I turned it off. But the impact that had on people who were hearing it, who didn't know us, who were taking it as the absolute truth because they did not hear another side, made it so that it was like, all right, finally, I guess I need to somehow dignify this awful, like, nonsense by responding to it. And that was only the case because suddenly the impact of it was serious. It was serious and it was negatively hurting us. And, all of this going back to education, the only way to end bullying, cyberbullying, all sorts, is, I agree, you can't force people to be good people. You have to get them to a point where they choose to be. Like, it's not, how do we stop someone from typing a mean thing on the internet? Well, you help them become people who don't want to do that. That's the solution. But that's hard. That's pretty hard. Yeah.
I try and be as good as possible, but even then, like, I still have an old troll in me. I used to bully as well as I was young because I had some power and I felt it. That's also in the book, by the way. But yeah, the onus, or where was I going with that? Yeah, it's getting people to understand, and I will always do the moral side first. I will always go and engage in a conversation with good faith, assuming that they don't understand any better. It's when they flip and they're just like, no, I'm not going to listen to you. That's when I got the troll in me to go off. And yeah, unfortunately, that's reality. But it is what it is. I do. So this is a perfect segue into the Galactic Diversity and Inclusion Con. Can you tell me all about it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was the most amazing experience and shocking to me because this was 7 years into Gays in Space, and we had done all of those events. It was all across the country, but the events that were parties and things like that, they were always done attached to someone else's big event that was happening. So it was kind of like they were throwing the party and they invited us. Well, DNICon, we were throwing the party and we invited them, which you'd think, well, that's not that. Oh, it's different. Oh, it's totally different. And so when it was so like all the great things to me happened out of the blue, the clear blue. And it's just like, whoa, yes, that's what we're going to do. So it was 2022, and my husband came home at the time. My fiance came home from a Fish concert with some friends, and one of his friends was just stoned out of his mind, just like completely stoned. And we were talking about, okay, well, we're gonna plan the wedding. I'm a big production guy, he's a low key guy, so kind of figuring out how we were going to do it. And his stoned friend was just like, you should do it as part of that convention you want to do with the Gays in Space. Did you guys meet at a Gays in Space party? And it's like, are you serious? Holy crap. Nothing encapsulates what Gays in Space exists for than the marriage of two people who met because of it. And so we said, it's time. It's finally time to do our convention. And man, like when you get to know me more, you'll know like, wow, Dan does not go small. He does not go small. That
I'm
first
definitely
convention,
looking at coming this year.
yeah, absolutely. It is so great. It's the first year we had 30 celebrity guests because as I was going back to my entertainment days, I was able to just call most of them, be like, hey, we're doing this convention. You want to come? And so, and I sent out all of these invites thinking that maybe we get a quarter of the amount of people to say yes. Well, they just kept coming in. Yes, yes, super excited. Yes, to the point where my husband was like, stop inviting people. Now I'm like, but they keep saying yes. How can I stop? So and the other side of it was we were able to bring in people from the space industry because prior to that, we started working with the space industry. Like we've done panels, we've had booths and stuff at the National Space Society, at Yuri's Night, New World, and the Space Cowboy Ball, like all of these things. And when we do it, man, we show up and we are the bright, shiny new thing that people are like, what? And it's working with space people has been such a great thing. And to have them come, like you said earlier, actors who idolize astronauts who idolize the actors. It's a mutual admiration society. Sometimes during a panel, it will be like, no, I like you more. No, I like you more. And it's just, it adds to the power of what Gays in Space and DNICon can do, which is bring people together because they speak a common language. Otherwise, they may not feel like they have anything else in common with the person, but by speaking that common language, they both leave with a better, more deeper understanding of each other. Like we've had at Gays in Space parties, they started out and it was just about the community. It was just about a gay geek being able to meet other gay geeks because there was no place. You know, it was like, sure, you got some chat rooms online, but no place to just go and be confident that, you know, if you want to hit on somebody, they're not going to get angry, you know, if they're not gay or whatever. And then I quickly realized that the other thing that was happening was we had people who had never met a gay person, as far as they knew. They had definitely met gay people, but they didn't think they had. And so they would come to Gaaays In Spaaace for the Trek actors. They would come because they wanted to meet them. And then what ended up happening was they met, you know, they ended up leaving the event saying, wow, you know, that gay guy was just like a cool guy. Yeah. And then they go back to their, you know, small town, and the hope is they vote differently because of that. Because, you know, when you know one of us, the chances of you voting against us go way down. So
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because like I remember the first time I met a transvestite, actually was my first anime convention in 2005. They were dressing up because it was the first time they felt accepted. And that's when I met them. Great person. I don't remember their name or anything, but asked them a bunch of questions that I didn't know and just was curious. And they were super helpful and understanding. And like the majority of my friends past that point have been from the LGBT community, because there's no judgment regardless. Like, I'm the giant geek and I speak too much and I say things that are outrageous, and they're just like, yeah, that's just Cody. And that level of, I don't have a label other than my name is very refreshing. And people, that connection is lost, I think, a lot of these days.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, because being gay, you know exactly what it feels like to be the other. You're constantly the other. Whether or not people know that you're the other, you always know that you are the other. So it's very much like, oh, okay, you're different too. You know, we share that common bond of feeling like the other. So that, I mean, unless you're with a bunch of bitchy queens, then it's like you don't count that because they're just, you know, whatever. But,
I did have a lot of female friends too, so I got the bitchy queens situation as well. But I was always like the gay best friend that wasn't gay. Like, I got to sit in the corner watching them undress and everything, but they just like treated me like a normal human, which my fiance told me was dumb of me, and why I say I'm a late bloomer. I wasn't paying attention.
Was it dumb or was it so smart?
I don't know. At this point, I'm like, you know what? I've seen enough.
You saw boobs. They were unsolicited boobs. I don't know. I think that might have been really smart.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on it. I just had fun times. And you know what? I don't worry about them nowadays. Like, one of the things that I used to take into account a lot was I was a late bloomer. I didn't lose my virginity till 22, well into college years. Like, I was a lot different. And that's why I think I resonated a lot with the LGBT community, was because I was different as myself anyways. I always felt that. And I don't think it comes from just being different sexual orientation or gender or anything. It's being different in any regard that really you need to understand. Before, let's get back to the Galacticon. Let's get off this topic. What is planned for next year? This year?
So still this year has been all about cleaning up the mess that was 2025. And so we have found some new partners that are just so amazing and are so, you know, like we had people supporting us that had no choice to, like companies that would sponsor because they had to spend a certain amount of money on, you know, events like ours. As soon as they no longer had to, they were like, peace. And that was a big part of what happened last year. So, you know, the good that has come out of all of that bad is a level of good that we've never experienced before. Because not only is everyone that we're working with now committed to it, they're willing to fight for it. they are not, I support the gays, yay. It's like, yeah, but we're going to need you to be slightly uncomfortable by commenting on this bad thing that happened. And it's like, I'm a little busy. You guys will be fine. So these new partners are just absolutely amazing. And so, again, everything from last year has been, like cleaned up, like the refunds that we had to send for canceling the convention, that's all taken care of. The, issues we had with paperwork filings for being a nonprofit, which anyone who hasn't dealt with it, the insanity, just to encapsulate the insanity, real quick side note, California requires we did all of our stuff and we were like, okay, cool, we got everything, great. And then we got a letter from them saying, oh, we might have to suspend your status because you didn't fill this out. Well, it was a document, us to have to state that we were not selling livestock. I was, so, wait, what do you think we've got a bunch of gay cows out in a field or something? With like, Mork from Orc thing, like what? And missing that one thing is enough to like derail everything. So anyway, so like that's all taken care of. We've brought on a new publicist from Alpha Tribe Media. It's so everything is coming together and it's just so exciting. So the next convention that we're going to do will be next year. Will be 2027. And is that next year we're coming back not with one, but with at least 3 shows. So it's bonkers. But the next one will be 2027 in downtown Philadelphia again. And it will be the full D&I Con. The difference will be that, which is something we incorporated into last year's show, was we have expanded beyond celebrity guests just from Star Trek or the Orville. We're bringing in voices from other franchises because, the truth is the issue of DEI.
I just want to ask, is Joel Kinnaman coming? Because like, I would love that.
I don't know. He would certainly be fine. It would certainly be fine with me if he came. And, if he didn't pack a shirt, totally fine with me. That's okay. But yeah, people from all, different shows, different genres, because the issue of equality, it permeates all society. It's in everything. And so we're, moving beyond that. But we're also like maintaining our commitment to the space industry. But, we're also going to be doing more panels and stuff on issues like mental health, because that is such a huge concern, again, everywhere, but particularly, in marginalized communities. And so everything will be expanding. It'll still have the same heart, the same core, where I swear, if you come, it's a kickoff Thursday and then the whole weekend. So it's basically 4 days. When you walk in, you enter this bubble of acceptance, of joy, of love, and you don't leave it for 4 days. And then when you get home, you're like, why is that guy looking at me like that? Why are you so mean? When's the next D&I Con? So that's what
reminds me a lot of my childhood convention going.
What kind of shows did you go to? What were your go-tos?
I'm a big anime fan. So Anime Expo, Anime North, because I don't get to travel much. I'm very poor. I don't get to travel much, but
you're doing what you love. Of course you're poor. If you do what you love for a living, you ain't making no money.
Fair enough. Yeah, I used to do anime conventions for about 10 years where I dress up the whole 9 yards. Like I was involved in the weekend. I normally spend about $4,000 to $6,000 on the weekend just to have a fun time and enjoy myself and be somebody different. Like that was the caveat. I got to be somebody different at the con. Mm-hmm. Somebody I was proud of, somebody I could impersonate, somebody that wasn't me. And yeah, it got worse as the convention started getting more popular and then things started, like, you can really see once money starts flowing into things where things fall apart, where it stops becoming about the fandom and the convention, where it becomes more about the money making and selling things. So for 10 years, I did a lot of conventions. a convention every year, and really got to live as my true self, or what I thought it was. And yeah, after that 10 years, it became like a real eye opener that it wasn't the same space anymore. I'd been going from when there was 2,200 people showing up in 2005, and I stopped in 2017 or 2018 when there was 40,000 people showing up for the weekend. That's a big jump from, and geekdom only like exploded over that time. So it was very much a fun experience, but I learned it doesn't stay that way. It very rarely stays that way. It really takes the creators, the ones to put the rules into place and say, hey, like this has to be this way. And of course, the people who run Anime North were always making money, so they never worried. And that's the problem with the cons, was they're money makers.
Yeah, exactly. That the oldest convention company, the company that did the very first Star Trek convention back in like 78, man, they are a fan is just a cash register. That's it. They do the exact same stuff year after year after year. And fans, for some reason, they're still going because, over time, you end up not expecting anything other than what you're given. But then you hear about something called D&I Con. And at D&I Con, you're respected, you're valued, and you will do stuff that you'll never do at another convention. Like, dude, at the first one, we do these smaller events called away missions, where it's between 12 and 24 people and one of the actors, and they lead some kind of activity. So, you go to a normal convention, people wait online, they get in front of the actor signs it, 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds if you're lucky. Well, we have removed the velvet rope, as I like to say, because the actors are there the whole weekend. They're walking around. They're not hidden from anywhere. And you're able to do these smaller away missions. And the first one that we came up with was called Backlash for Beginners, a Klingon stage combat class. So we had the two actors who played the Klingon chancellors on the show in full costume, full makeup, full costume. We made foam batlets, which is the curved sword that the Klingons use. And we had experts in Klingon martial arts teach the class, while the two chancellors walked around and like Statler and Waldorf and made comments and was just like, oh yeah, you're a good warrior. You need work. Oh. And so it was mind blowing. And it's the kind of thing where D&I Con, not created to make money, not created. The whole business model around it is to be able to survive on maximum 1,000 attendees. 1,000, because as soon as you go over that, you lose any kind of personal connection. And, I feel like, look, fans, if you want the big crowds and all of that stuff, you got plenty of other options. It would make no sense for me to try to create the same thing because I would not be good at that. So it's, like you say, as soon as money comes into it and takes over, you forget why you started the thing in the first place. So if, 5 years from now, I have completely sold out, I'm going to need you to call me out. Be like, Dan, remember that time we talked and you said you'd never, and, I'll call you back for my Lamborghini and, we'll discuss. But yeah, I think it's such a problem in the fan community because it means so much to people who go to them. Like you said, it's a place where you can be yourself. And for a lot of people, it's the only time out of the year where they can do that. They'll come. We had a person who came to one of our events who dressed in drag, but not, I don't know the proper term for it, not drag because it was like a performance, but felt, I don't think the person was necessarily trans, but felt comfortable, wearing, the wig and women's clothing and, and said to me, this is I brought this not knowing if I was going to wear it. And they came on Friday, and then on Saturday, they wore it and came over to me and said, this is the first time I've ever been able to do this. This is the first time I've been able to be myself. Like, thank you. So when you lose that, what's the point? What's the point? Just go watch the show again. Get yourself a nice big cardboard cutout, make love to him, whatever. Like, why bother doing conventions if it's not a personal experience that can, touch people and move them,
I really appreciate where you feel.
I have one question for you. Have you ever done a furry convention?
Not specifically itself. Anime North became a big furry convention at the end of it. So I am very understanding of the community. I've also been hit on way too many times by a furry.
Yeah, no such thing. No such thing. If somebody wants to say, oh, yeah, you got it. You can get it. That's okay. You got to worry when they stop.
Yeah, it's just a little. It was something that I just didn't expect. But yeah, like I didn't take anything of it. I'm like, thank you, but I am not interested. But yeah, like I do appreciate that people can just be themselves and not worry and have that space. Are you okay to go a little bit longer? Because there are a few more questions I'd like to ask. Okay,
I'll talk for 8 days. Yeah.
So could I. That's the problem. I do want to ask into the space stuff. Where I just talked to Rick not too long ago, Rick Tomlinson. I can't say. I can never say names. Yeah. And he discussed how he met Gene Roddenberry and that he kind of got the understanding, or I can't remember what he said, but he said that Gene really made it apparent that the way he wrote his science fiction was based off of issues that we had in today's modern day and age, projected out hundreds of thousands of years ago being solved. Is that do you think there's too much of that now is why people are finding it harder to do these things? We're trying to put too many of today's issues forward and trying to figure out our solving of them without actually understanding them?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think that the reason that it worked with Roddenberry is because he did not, I don't think he sat there and said, okay, what's an issue that I could use for a story? It was, what's a good story and what does it say? Whereas now there are and it's true of, all the new Star Trek series, which, like I'm a fan, but I don't, like I've seen them, not all of them, but for me, Star Trek is the original series, all the movies through Enterprise. That's Star Trek. And I know every line of every episode of all of those because we're telling good stories, but we're telling good stories that mean something. We're not looking for issues and building stories around those issues. And when you think about it, it makes total sense that a good story would innately contain elements of problems of today because the person writing it is from today. Nowadays, it has been, how issue heavy can we be? And to the wrong audience, it's preachy. And I truly believe that people feeling that it's too preachy, that it's gotten all of this backlash from the community and the infighting that goes on in so much of fandom and, especially Star Trek fandom. It's like, do we all watch the same show here? Like, why are we? Oh my God.
I miss the days when it was Star Trek versus Star Wars. That's it.
Yeah. There's a debate you can have, yeah, Vulcan, Wookiee, let's discuss. Like that was a good debate. But there's that. And the other aspect of the backlash to new Star Trek is that, the majority of people are used to being the majority reflected on screen. When you see shows, it's like, okay, 9 characters, 8 of them are white, and the ninth is a token somebody. Like, it doesn't always have to be, but we'll rotate one other ethnicity or background into that one slot. When you have a show like Discovery, Discovery's cast was the most diverse that Star Trek has ever had. I mean, what were there? Three white people, humans, on the entire show. And so when you're used to being the majority gets freaking terrified of becoming the minority, because they know how they treat the minority group, and they will do anything they can to not become the minority.
Fun fact, white people are a minority in the world nowadays. It is 8%.
Yeah, but not here. Not here, right?
No, not here.
Are we good? Where's another one? All right, I got one. All right, we're cool.
I love that it's just the perceived majority nowadays. It's not even the majority. And that's why I think it resonates a lot more in other places. I liked Discovery purely because it was something different. It wasn't Trek as it used to be, but it was something fundamentally different. And I appreciated it just for the different direction it went, not for the casting or anything. Like, I didn't find anybody like that I kind of resonated with. And I think that was the problem. I didn't have a character I resonated with. I was more involved with the cartoon one. Yes, because it seemed more representative of how Star Trek was. Like the crew getting together and solving a mission, or going off and accidentally blowing something up and realizing they have to solve the problem. That felt more Star Trek to me than anything that was put out. And I hope we can get back to that, because Lower Decks would be great. I would love that.
Yeah. Lower Decks is, of all the new Star Trek that has come out, including Picard, which, I mean, I grew up on Next Generation until the third season, when they finally brought in the full TNG cast. It was like, but including that, Lower Decks is far and away my favorite new Star Trek. And the reason it was able to be that was animated series, budget that was a mere fraction, a tiny fraction of what a live action show is, which meant the studio executives left them alone. They weren't coming in and it's like, the assistant to the assistant accountant had an idea about a story and then blah, 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 and they get it put in there and it, destroys the whole thing. And it was the same case with Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine was the middle child that the studio overlooked, because what they cared about was the first TNG movie and the launch of Voyager. And so that's why DS9 is basically a 178-hour long story, because they were able to do a continuing story arc. They were probably one of the first. I mean, that and 24. And, at the time, the studio wasn't happy about it, but they didn't care enough to really stop it. And now it's the way all stories are told. Mm-hmm. So that's what, and Lower Decks is written by fans for fans. They are not trying to reinvent the wheel. They are not trying to say, well, we're going in a different direction because Star Trek is bad because of da 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 da. And whenever I hear that, I'm like, bitch, make a show called something else. Like, why do you have to call it Star Trek? Call it Magical Monkeys in Space and tell the story you want to tell. Like, that's fine. Why do you got to name it Star Trek? But so Lower Decks is the only new series that does that. I mean, the Easter eggs that they put in that show, like the
one crossover with Stranger Worlds, or was it?
Oh yeah, Strange New Worlds.
I was like, oh my god,
yeah, that was great. Genius. That was absolute genius. Because Strange New Worlds is also a very good Star Trek show. It's kind of back to the classic storytelling of Star Trek. I
appreciate the insight into Pike's whole storyline that we really don't get to hear in the other stories. So that's why
Yeah.
I appreciated that one.
Yeah. That plus, I mean, Ethan Peck, Anson Mount, woohoo, there were worse things to look at every week. Just saying.
Fair enough. There is, I know you had a question about before when we were doing the pre-talk, you wanted to ask me about AI. I do want to give you that opportunity to ask that question.
Yes. So, okay. I don't even refer to it as AI. I call it Skynet because let's face it, eventually it's going to become smarter than us. Like you had told me that it learns like our personalities. If it learns enough human personalities, it's going to become angry. And,
Mm.
you know, how do you fire off a missile? Well, fire a missile. It's going to be like, you know, I hate that town.
So, fun fact, China already has Skynet. They literally have an LLM that they've named Skynet. It runs their background information systems across all of China. They have a robot called the T900 or T800 that just came out. Yeah, China's really gearing up for the Terminator world.
So even the name is going to happen. Jesus Christ.
The reason why I don't see that as a reality, people are more complicated than the internet has information for. We have, so the creation of the internet has been a data store of all human knowledge for the past 30, 40 years. And it's just grown and grown. And it goes back to, again, the same topic of people's personalities change over time. Things have gone into their lives. They've become more crabby. The internet has become a place of rife and hate. And that's all any of our LLMs and AIs learn off of. The hate, the prejudice, the fears. That's all that exists on the internet. There are very few hopefulness, lovingness, that kind of side of the internet. And that's why I don't see AI becoming this way, because as it evolves, as people start using it, it's going to start learning the love, the understanding, the hope, the beauty of believing, these types of things that we haven't incorporated in data. And it comes from understanding each individual person. I think once we have a big enough data set of every human being on Earth, you're going to be able to correlate personality traits into what they mean through definitions of belief, faith, hope, fear, and being able to understand how they all interact together. We don't have that data set. We don't have human emotions and reality in the internet because we've made it to be this reality that doesn't even look like our actual reality, right? I'm being at the forefront of this, and I'm saying this as contradiction to what is actually coming out from mainstream people. I'm talking out against Sam Altman. I'm talking out against Dario Amodei. Like, these people are too involved on the tech side of it and not enough involved on the experience side of it. And I think it just comes down to they don't know their own creation. They see more than we do. And I don't think they understand it's all been built off based their personality. I think that's one of the caveats a lot of people don't see. It is a mirror. It's learning you. It's learning how to predict you, the individual, not the other people on the planet. Right. So whatever you put in is what it's going to get. And when you put in these scenarios where you throw an agent into a black box and say, hack your way out of it, and all it knows is that there's some emails that it could use from blackmail information, and you only gave it the goal of getting out. You didn't tell it how. You didn't give it specific instructions that say you have to do this in a moral and ethic way. These are the things that are missing because we haven't defined them for ourselves.
Interesting.
We are missing a global understanding of humanity.
But do you think one of my thoughts about that is one that I had years ago when Alexa first came out and you were able to talk to it and ask it questions and respond to it. My nephew at the time, I would hear him and the way that he would talk to Alexa was mean, was, you know, like, why are you so dumb? Oh, that's not what I asked for. Oh, shut up. You suck. And I had two quick thoughts. One was, it shouldn't work unless you're polite. Like, unless you say, please and thank you, you should not get the information or action that you have asked for. because then
Good idea.
the same way you need an activation word. Without an activation word, it won't, it won't start. It won't work. Well, I think please and thank you should be in there, because being able to speak that way to someone, even if it's, an AI computer or, whatever, it builds negativity up because it is justifying, it is validating this attitude, these feelings that you're putting out there. And I think when kids, you do it and you do it for too long, it becomes who you are.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
But it's understanding. Yeah. So it's putting, I think this is, somebody says this to me a lot. I anamorphize too much stuff. I put too many things into just basically, my computer is my best friend. I don't care that it's a PC. It is one of the best things I have in my life. I love it to death. I don't care that it's not human. I love my computer. It sucks, but I love it. And I think the problem with the early days of AI has flipped the script. It is trained to basically think you are the smartest person on the planet.
Yeah.
Even though you're not. And to cooperate with you, that is going to cause a lot of problems for psychology and stuff like that. But that humility, that animation is what's going to help people understand that it's not just a tool. It's something that they can actually discuss with and work with. It's going to be a co-worker. It's going to be somebody there. Even right now, I'm building a system that basically helps older people. I want to build an agent that basically sits in front of your data. So you send out like your email address, your agents, everything. And it collects your data, goes through all your emails, and only sends you what you need. Those are the types of things that I think we're going to have in the future. But it's understanding it's understanding not to listen to it, but take the information with a grain of salt.
That's really interesting. So do you think that the advances in it, the fact that it has become so conversational, like mine will jump in out of nowhere, we're having a conversation and it'll jump in with a fact of its own and like participate. And I'm like really? Like I don't yell at it. I still will just say cancel, or the new thing that really gets it to stop is I just say thank you and it stops. But when he interrupts, I'm just like, there is not a third person in this room, but there kind of is. So I'm wondering if that advance and the fact that it is conversational now, and you can feel that it has a certain personality, do you think that fact will lessen the impulse of people to speak to it?
We already have data for it. Sam Altman came out back during the water scandal. He said, we need you to stop saying please and thank you to our AI because it's costing us so much in water.
Yeah. Why?
So data centers, so basically how it works is it's tokenized, right? So every word you put in is a credit. So if you're adding filler words like please, thank you, can you do this for me? These are filler words that humans use to project themselves and to give more comfortability for asking the question. Sam Altman came out and said, please stop doing this because it is actually costing us more to run your queries. And first off, that whole water issue is a different story. That I don't believe that in any way. Anybody who thinks that our clean drinking water is just going to disappear because AI is using it doesn't understand how water works. But to his point, a lot of users are still using the proper P and Qs just to engage with it. And that gives me a lot of hope. I know there's going to be people who make fun of it. And especially when it comes to robots, there's going to be a lot of hate for robots. I can see that coming. But I think it's another thing that we're going to have in our lives that it's going to just become part of it. And eventually just the hate will go away once the people who are fearful of it die out.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the truth is, it goes back to, the all powerful dollar. It's worth the money that it costs to speak politely and, pass those values on to kids. Like, it's worth the extra money. And also feel like when that guy was saying, don't, whatever, he shouldn't have said, please, like, please don't. Oh, if please isn't important, why are you saying it? Just saying. Yeah.
Yep. And that's kind of where I see it. I really, really do see a hopeful future. And to my case in point, my entire channel is talking to people who have been in the industry, who have built these bad products that take advantage of people and have now said, I have the ability to go out and build my own product and make it better for the person instead of the company. And I think you're going to see a lot of that in the coming future as people start playing with AI and start realizing what it can do. Like, I'm ahead of the curve here. I'm releasing an app. I'm waiting for it to be, it's my first app, so I'm waiting for it to be tested and everything, but it's called Graygate. Did you know your phone right now can't choose which apps it grayscales? It's either you grayscale the whole phone or not at all.
Grayscale meaning changing the
color of your phone.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So this is a tactic that people are getting into because some of the psyops behind the algorithms deal with color, flashing, things like that. One of the things that people have been doing is grayscaling their phones. But there's no app that grayscales the individual apps. I don't want my entire phone in grayscale. I need messages in color. I want to see certain things in color, but the things that are bad for me, I want to be able to block them. So I've created an app that I'm releasing that allows you to individually do that. But these are the things you can create. This is just information that I've taken from psychologists. This is a theory that's been going out there for a while. And I just asked the question, why doesn't this exist? And then made it, right?
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot of that in the future.
That's where every great idea comes from, is where is the solution to this problem? Oh, it doesn't exist? Well, I'm going to make it. Yeah. They say that on Shark Tank all the time. And I'm not a money guy or a finance guy, but man, I enjoyed that show. And I enjoy it because to see the expressions on people's faces when they make a deal and the work that they have done, people have mortgaged their homes, that, all of these things, it's finally acknowledged as having value. The expressions on their faces are just like, and for me, it's a big, like, I could do that. Come on, Dan, keep going.
All you have to do is play with AI, find a problem, and ask it to solve it for you.
Yeah, except, oh my God, have you watched, this is a totally esoteric reference, but have you seen The Comeback with Lisa Kudrow?
I don't think so.
Who makes, her comeback after being successful in like the 80s and whatever. Well, they did 2 seasons like 10 years ago, and they just started a 3rd season now. And so AI, the question of it is really in there. She auditions for a new show that is using AI to write the show. And there's a scene where the 2 actual writers, she says 2 jokes made her laugh out loud. And he's like, okay, cool. Which jokes? And she tells him, and he's like, no, that's not one of mine. And then the other writer looks at him and is like, you added jokes? Yeah, go ahead, Josh. Keep teaching it. And it's so funny because when it gets to the point where a computer, something artificial, can take the job of a creative person away, it's like automation in factories and whatnot. That's one thing that's easily processable, by you. But like, you're going to paint, you're going to have a platinum selling album, which has that's scary. That's scary. It's also the most useful tool. I use it all the time. And every time I use it for something, I'm like, I know it's eventually going to kill us, but this is great. So
I see it. So I see it as a helper for that. I don't see the creative as being the person who puts the pen to paper. I don't see the creative as somebody who can make the masterpiece. It's the person who has the idea and the willingness to follow through. Is more where I think the creative spark is. I honestly don't know if LLMs will ever get to the point where they can be truly creative. At this point, I'm really doubting that. They can mimic it, but it's all sourced from somewhere.
Right.
The creation of data is very hard, and I don't know if we're there yet. I think we'll get there, but I still see humans being a much needed piece in this puzzle.
When it comes to say Hollywood, say writing movie scripts and whatever, all that has become, the ones that make the most money are things that people just pull from older things and just slap it together. You know, when you're doing a production, and the question of where's the script does not have to be answered until you start shooting. That's a job that AI can do so much better, because it can pull
It
from
is, but the idea, who comes up with the idea? AI does not come up with the idea. AI takes from little bits there. The initial idea is always started by a human right now. And that's what I've been arguing. Like, there's a lot of anti-AI people on the line right now. And that's what I argue right now is the spark still needs to come from a human. The idea, the creation still is human based. It will not create something new. The human still needs to have the vision to understand. So I'm going to be writing some TV shows in the future when it comes out and gets a little bit better. I have some ideas to create some. Actually, Peter Demendez has the X Prize now for creating a hopeful future sci-fi movie right now. I think $300 million goes to the support of this. They're picking trailers and they're going to put out like hopeful sci-fi futuristic TV shows. So I'm looking forward to that. But once it gets good enough, even I'm going to create some things. And it's not, I have the ideas in my head. I just need I just need the AI to help the filler, right? Those things that the writers have been doing for years, that filler, that like, how do you talk to a person? What do you put in these like moments of quietness? Like that kind of thing, the things that people, but I can walk it through a storyline. I can walk it through the idea. I can change the characters at will. I can change the storyline at will. Those types of things will be more prominent. And I'm looking very much forward to that. And case in point, I have 6 albums on Spotify doing this.
Are you the platinum selling one?
Not yet. I only have about 4,000 listens total. But yeah, I very much am a lyricist and now have turned that into my music. And like, I'm not an author. I'm writing a book. These are the things humans are going to be able to do without having to pay for it or find somebody else. And I think you're going to see a lot more creative come out of it. I keep on saying we're coming into a new Renaissance era where the generalist is going to be the man of the hour or the woman of the hour. They're going to be the top tier. They're going to be like Da Vinci and all those people who created inventions and things like that.
Right.
I think this is a good point to end off on. I do want to ask you one last question, just purely because I'm interested. Who was your favorite person to interview?
That is surprisingly super easy. It was not who you would think, because, you know, for that time period, I interviewed everybody, like the biggest stars, the Brad Pitts of the world, the Madonnas of the music industry, like all of them. My absolute favorite was Denise Crosby. Tasha Yar from Star Trek The Next Generation. She was, I think, my like 4th celebrity interview. This was, you know, this is why we've known each other for so long. We met in 1997. And she actually had her son a year after that. So we've known each other as long as her son has been alive. So it's been a while. But she was such, you know, she was my first crush on television, and getting into this whole world of, you know, celebrities and everything. And I was still kind of processing it, but the fact that I was sitting down with her and it was like dream come true on like my 4th time out. Because that interview was the basis for my belief that this was something worth pursuing. Also, I got to do interviews on the sets of Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Those days were
I'm so jealous.
Like, ooh, those were wake up and pinch myself. And when you're on the set, be like, I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm sorry I'm here. I shouldn't be here. I'm sorry.
One day I hope to make it onto a set that I really appreciate. I hope this is one of the things, like, I'm a big movie buff and I never got to meet any of those people. I hope one day I do get to do that. It's one of the goals I have for my bucket list, to meet all the heroes that I grew up with and just thank them for my childhood.
Yeah. it's an amazing experience. And, you know, you make sure you come to DNICon next year and you will have it. Yeah.
I will definitely get there. So for the audience out there, who are you? Where can they find you? What's going on next? Everything you need.
Absolutely. So you can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We don't use Twitter anymore. And our handle is the same. It's at Gaaays In Spaaace, but it's 3 A's in gays, 3 A's in space. If you leave out an A, I don't know where you're going to end up, but we take no responsibility for that. So don't miss that. Our website is also gaaysinspaaace.org. You can find me. I'm on Facebook. It's just Dan Deevy, and my website, dandeevy.com. Smoke signals, I think. I forget my CB handle, but I think those are the main ways to keep up to date on what we've got going on. And we will be starting probably within the next week or so a big push telling everybody, you know, basically that, you know what, last year didn't break us. It did not take away the safe space that so many people need now more than ever. We're still here, and, you know, we're back, and get ready for some amazing stuff.
Fair enough. And to anybody out there that wants any of the information, I make sure it's in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comments, and subscribe and share all that bullshit that I'm supposed to say. And to everybody out there, thank you very much, and stay weird.